The last few months have been rather distressing for Australians, both those within the country fighting these fires, those within the city choking on the smoke, and those outside the country who feel a sense of hopelessness as we watch our country burn. Today, I'm going to spill out all the information you need to know about these fires. No trendy ranks, no catchy music, just the information as it is and what we know.
Before we start, I would like to mention that the revenue generated from this video will be donated to the Red Cross in order to assist the relief efforts. While wildfires are a persistent issue around the world, Australia's bushfires are proving to be utterly devastating. To date, over 26 million acres of land have been burned since the 2019-2020 bushfire season began. That's an area larger than all of Portugal. For greater context, the 2018 California wildfires, which were considered the most destructive in the state's history, saw less than 2 million acres of land burned, while the 2019 Amazon rainforest fires saw 17.5 million acres destroyed. What's more, across Australia, this bushfire season has destroyed 5,900 buildings, claimed 28 lives, and seen hundreds of thousands of people evacuated from their homes. One estimate puts the number of animals killed to over 1 billion. Let me repeat that, over 1 billion. All of Australia's states and territories have been affected, although New South Wales has been hit the hardest. For example, during the week of January 6, 2020, there were somewhere between 100 and 130 active fires in New South Wales alone. Victoria shares a mega blaze with New South Wales that straddles the border between the states, and has declared a state of disaster, with over 3 million acres of land burned there to date. As of early January, the states of South Australia, Queensland, Western Australia, and Tasmania each had between 20 to 30 active bushfires. Because summers in Australia tend to be hot and dry, there's a recognised yearly bushfire season during which naturally occurring bushfires are expected. It's actually an essential part of the cycle for renewal for plant life in certain parts of the country. Many fires are a result of human activity, including electrical issues, agricultural reasons, or simple carelessness with campfires and cigarettes. Others occur as a result of natural causes, primarily lightning strikes, and sometimes new fires can start from embers from existing flames. Unfortunately, due to the extremely devastating nature of the 2019-2020 bushfire season, there's been more media attention focused on these fires than ever before, leading to the spread of misinformation. Examples include artistic representation of satellite images of Australia that misrepresent the location and size of the fires. Perhaps the most egregious form that this misinformation has taken, however, is the gross exaggeration of the role played by arson. In early January, news that, quote, 183 arsonists were responsible for the majority of the bushfires went viral. Some outlets even rounded up this figure to 200. This gained traction not only with everyday social media users, but also public figures with major reach, including Donald Trump Jr. and Sean Hannity. In reality, though, only 24 people had been arrested for intentionally setting fires, and very few, if any, are likely to have resulted in major blazes. As for the nearly 200 figure, that's actually the number of people who have received some form of legal reprimand pertaining to fire. But these can be as simple as being irresponsible with a campfire or a cigarette. This media coverage has generated backlash, with Rupert Murdoch's company News Corp receiving widespread criticism from the general public, as well as from a senior employee within News Corp, and even Murdoch's own son, James. News Corp has defended their coverage of the fires through an editorial in The Australian. They denied pushing a climate denial agenda, despite employing columnists that have posted numerous climate denial articles in the past. So, if not arson, what are the key factors that cause bushfires in the manner of which they spread? Geoscience Australia breaks it down into the following: fuel load, which includes fallen bark, twigs, and leaves; fuel moisture, which is how dry these elements are; wind speed, which affects the spread of the blaze and the amount of oxygen that feeds it; ambient temperature, which is overall heat; relative humidity, the moisture or lack thereof in the air; slope angle, meaning the landscape, given that fires travel faster uphill; and ignition source, which is what started the fire. In a basic sense, the three factors behind bushfires are drought, heat, and strong winds. According to climate scientist Wenju Chai of the CSIRO, which is Australia's national science agency, Australia regularly experiences 2 to 3 year droughts. However, Most scientists agree that the droughts have gone notably worse over the last few decades. In fact, the spring of 2019 was Australia's driest on record. This means that a single spark can prove increasingly devastating. Then there's the heat to consider. In December of 2019, the country experienced unprecedented highs. The heat can be traced back in part to the Indian Ocean dipole, a climate phenomenon similar to the El Niño weather cycle in the Pacific Ocean. The dipole is currently in a positive phase, which means the Indian Ocean is warmer on the western side and cooler on the eastern side.
This changes the path of weather systems coming from Australia's west, often meaning less rain over central and southeast areas.
This temperature differential is the most extreme it's been for decades, and results in not only high temperatures for places like Australia and Indonesia, but less rainfall in Australia as well. Last, we have the wind factor, which not only drives the flames to spread, but also feeds the blaze with oxygen. And unfortunately, this bushfire season is proving to be one characterized by especially strong and unpredictable winds. In December, the winds were fierce enough to flip a truck, killing a volunteer firefighter in New South Wales. All of these issues are inherent to Australia's climate, but the national average temperature has also risen by approximately 1 degree Celsius over the last 100 years, and has done so at accelerated speed. Though a seemingly minor change, it can have major ramifications when it comes to weather patterns and humidity. So while climate change is not directly igniting the bushfires, there's strong evidence that the factors resulting in the bushfires are being intensified by global warming. Australia does employ routine countermeasures to limit the spread of bushfires through hazard reduction burns during the colder seasons. However, the New South Wales Rural Fire Service Commissioner, Shane Fitzsimmons, stated that the annual window allowing for safe burning is declining.
And the single biggest impediment to completing hazard reduction burning is the weather. And with longer fire seasons, earlier starts and later finishes to fire seasons, like we've been experiencing over recent times, you get a shrinking window of opportunity for more favourable hazard reduction burning periods. And in that shrinking window, you get the extremes of it can be too wet and too cold to effectively get hazard reduction burns done, through to it being too hot and too dry and therefore too dangerous.
To make matters worse, the extreme heat of the bushfires can create violent weather systems in the form of pyrocumulonimbus clouds, or fire clouds. The silver lining to these clouds is that they can sometimes bring rain, but not enough. However, they often result in dry lightning in the area, causing even more fires. These storm systems also generate their own intense winds. The resulting firestorm is incredibly hard to fight. With so many fires raging throughout the country, keeping people safe is no longer as simple as controlling the bushfires and evacuating them when the flames get too close. Adelaide, Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, and Melbourne have all had days where poor air quality has breached the hazardous mark. In some cities, they have reached levels 11 times greater than the hazardous cap. And in certain rural areas, the smoke has covered the sky, painting it shades of red.
It's only 4:15 in the afternoon. And it's 36 degrees. We've lost mobile phone reception. So at the moment, we're depending on the local knowledge of these crews in front of us.
The smoke is so abundant that it's reportedly reached New Zealand and even parts of South America. 2 people have already been confirmed dead as a result of smoke inhalation. A 19-year-old woman from Glen Innes, New South Wales died when thick smoke triggered an asthma attack, and an elderly woman died shortly after disembarking a plane at Canberra Airport. So what's being done to stop the bushfires? Pretty much everything that firefighters, both professional and volunteer, can do. Firefighters from overseas are even flying in to help. There are thousands of firefighters working to put out fires across the country, with over 2,000 in New South Wales alone. Some of these firefighters are getting as little as 3 hours of sleep.
I've missed my wife's 50th birthday. I've missed Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I've missed Boxing Day. I've missed New Year's Day.
It's just like an accumulation of exhaustion, I guess, and not sleeping that well because you're worried.
New South Wales and Victoria have declared a state of emergency and a state of disaster respectively, in order to liberate more resources to combat the flames. At the federal level, the military has been brought in to help support the firefighters and coordinate various support tasks like evacuation. Meanwhile, billions of dollars are being allocated to the recovery effort. However, Australia's federal government has faced considerable criticism for its handling of the crisis. Prime Minister Scott Morrison was excoriated for going on holidays in Hawaii in mid-December, while the fires were still burning. and an upbeat video promoting the government's responses to the fires was, well, not well received. Critics have accused his administration of inaction, of insufficient funding to emergency services, and of having a regressive attitude towards climate change. Morrison's remarks about volunteer firefighters wanting to be out there battling the blazes while defending the government's decision not to compensate them also drew widespread scorn.
You from the media, tell the Prime Minister to go and get from Nelligan. We really enjoy doing this head.
Only conceding his position after the leader of the opposition, Anthony Albanese, put pressure on the issue. As the bushfire season has evolved, so too has the government's position. But the Prime Minister continues to hammer home the message that the bushfire responsibility lies primarily with the individual states and territories.
As I said, this is the first time where I think the federal government has ever been in a position where we've had to take this action. And to ensure that in the future it can be done in a way that I think is in a more preemptive posturing, that we can do that, I think, more seamlessly.
The continuing public pressure, though, both domestically and internationally, seems to be forcing the federal government into taking a more active role in combating the crisis, even if many feel it's too little, too late.
What do you think Scott Morrison should do at this stage then, the Prime Minister?
Off out of this country because he don't deserve to live in this country anymore.
Sadly, the current facts and figures only represent the damage up to this point, and the bushfire season is nowhere close to being done. Annually, the height of the bushfire season in Australia is between late January and early February. Given that a substantial portion of bushfires are a result of natural causes, no amount of caution or preventive measures can stop more from starting. What has changed, however, is the number of the fires, the intensity of factors like heat and drought, and the duration of the bushfire season as a whole. Fortunately, there has been some reprieve, with rain falling in New South Wales and Victoria during mid-January 2020, though the crisis is far from over. When Australia recovers from this record-breaking year of bushfires, there's nothing to say that the future seasons won't be as bad. 2019 and 2020 could simply be the perfect storm of factors coalescing in one extremely destructive season. But, looking at years past, the data forms a larger pattern that generally suggests that the bushfire season is getting increasingly worse with every passing year. And, if climate change is in fact to blame, well, consider this yet another major argument in favour of bringing about swift and substantial changes on a global scale.
So that's everything you need to know about this ongoing disaster, and yes, it will be getting worse into the next month. There's so many ways you can help out if you do want to help donate funds. Obviously, the firefighting services across the country can use your support. There'll be links down in the description below. There's also humanitarian services such as the Red Cross Australia and the Salvation Army that is helping victims who have lost their homes.
The World Wildlife Fund is also accepting donations to support conservation efforts for endangered animals who were hit hard by the fires, while Wildlife Warriors, which was founded by the late Steve Irwin, are treating animals who have been badly injured by the blazes.